Director of Makati. Coco, over to you.
Thank you very much, Roxanne, and good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Together with the Center for International Private Enterprise, CIPE, and in partnership with Integrity Initiative, we welcome you to our first session of the ESG Executive Series. In celebration of Anti-Corruption Day on December 9, MBC is proud to host this webinar where we tackle anti-corruption activities, those supported by the private sector and those that can be pursued with the new administration. Anti-corruption activities in the private sector are imperative to address long-standing issues of inflated costs, unfair competition, and negative societal impact that comes from corruption. We hope that the discussion that we prepared for you today provides a space where insights, challenges, and solutions are shared, but also where you can ask questions and understand the evolving business environment. Before we begin, I'd like to say hello to our partner at CIPE, represented today by Ryan Evangelista. I'm not sure if Ryan is on already, but he'll be speaking to us. It's Ryan.
Yes.
Hi. Good morning, Ryan. Ryan will be speaking to us, will be participating and speaking to us at the end of the activity. Good morning, Ryan. The ESG Executive Series is part of the Philippine ESG Action Project, a joint initiative between MBC and CIPE. The project intends to help lessen environmental, social, and governance or ESG-related risks in business operations. For this event, we will be zeroing in on governance through anti-corruption activities. We'd also like to thank our co-organizer, Integrity Initiative, represented here today by their chairman, Attorney Alex Cabrera, our chairman, Attorney Alex Cabrera. Also, Alex is the chairman emeritus of PwC Philippines. With that, I'd like to invite Alex to begin our program with a few words of welcome for our guests. Alex.
Thank you very much, Coco. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us to celebrate or probably get the essence of why we're celebrating Anti-Corruption Day. Pope Francis said the poor pays the price of corruption. It's true there, it's true around the world, and it is certainly true here. Because indeed, the poor are the most harmed whenever corruption happens. They are denied of sufficient access to medical facilities and the right treatment, denied of social welfare, denied of opportunities for new infra projects, and the subsidies for indigenous people and those who are living in abject poverty is also much lessened. And to say that there's no room for corruption and realize that there is some room here, and even for corruption to thrive here, can speak volumes about the fact that corruption is not only about material poverty, but it is more about moral poverty. The price of corruption for business may be defined in terms of the costs of doing business, but when you think of it in terms of human rights and human decency, then you will realize that whatever right you don't fight for, that right is only downgraded to a privilege. This concept of integrity, transparency, and accountability, they are beautiful words, and that is why the Integrity Initiative attempted to put this in more context and in more practical terms. Just to give you a brief of history, on the Integrity Casebook that we're using, and we're using this venue to launch the Integrity Casebook today, when we were talking to student leaders from schools around the country, what they're saying is that the ethics courses that they were being taught in school are not connecting. And they're saying that they don't know how to deal with it otherwise, because what they're being taught in many schools is that this is how ethical practices go, but in the real world, this is what happens. And what could prepare them to such a world if they're not being taught about the practicalities of dealing with ethical dilemmas? That is why initially, when we organized the Integrity Casebook, coming from experiences of people in different business organizations, we were thinking about the students. When we were about to launch it to students, the business sector said, why don't you launch it to us first? Because they know that there are immediate usefulness, immediate lessons that they can use in everyday business dealings with government from the Integrity Casebook. So the Integrity Casebook is about how do you overcome ethical dilemmas without sacrificing integrity. And it discusses, based on actual events, based on actual experiences, how to deal with different agencies of government, and how are these overcome by people dealing with government, without, doing anything parallel or doing anything underboard. And so we launch it today, and we are confident that this will help, not only because there are practical lessons to be learned from the casebook, but because of the fact that even in government, there are really very good souls working in government. There are people there who are competent and who listen to reason and who decide or process business transactions completely on the merits and completely above board. In fact, I would say that one of the most important products of the journey towards integrity is the creation of ARTA. And ARTA is not only important, it is also quite unique, because ARTA as an agency, anti-red tape authority, is unique because it is a government agency, but it exists for the private sector. It is a government agency, but it fights for the private sector, and it fights for transparency and integrity while it is in the process of trying to help remove red tape. So we will have our speaker later, from the Director General from ARTA. I can almost hear comments from our participants this morning, that we can come up with these cases, teach them practical things, and even the existence of ARTA there. And you would be probably saying that it's not enough because work ethics is hard and it's always going to be difficult. But to that, we in the Integrity Initiative and the Makati Business Club, to all that we say that the basis of our strength and the basis of our pride lies on doing things which are hard, lies on doing things that are being done because it is the right thing to do. I will hold you in no further suspense so that we can go on with our day. I'd like to thank you not only for joining us this morning, but joining us in our journey towards integrity. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Attorney Alex, for providing context on the current state of anti-corruption and anti-bribery in the business sector. We do hope we also hear a little bit about the other things that Integrity Initiative is doing, including the anti-bribery in the private sector bill, which we believe addresses critical problems that you've mentioned. However, we're very excited to hear more about the Integrity Casebook, and later on we'll have a more in-depth discussion about what we can learn from it and how we can share it not just in the business community, but as you mentioned, even to the youth. So thank you again, Attorney Alex. At this point, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Secretary Ernesto V. Perez. Secretary Perez is the Director General of the Anti-Red Tape Authority of the Philippines. It's an agency under the Office of the President created by the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018. He became the first appointed official and Deputy Director General of ARTA in 2018. While Secretary Perez is unable to attend due to equally important matters, he sent a recorded speech on ARTA's initiatives to reduce corruption by addressing red tape. And later on, he will be represented by Attorney Alma Martirez for our Q&A. But at this point, let's hear it from Secretary Perez.
To the officers and members of the Makati Business Club, to my fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. to Integrity Initiative Incorporated Chairman Emeritus, PricewaterhouseCoopers Philippines, Attorney Alexander Cabrera, Royal Cargo Incorporated Chairman and Group CEO Michael Raeuber, Center for International Private Enterprise Philippine Country Director Mr. Ryan Evangelista, and to all the ladies and gentlemen in attendance today, a pleasant morning. First, I'd like to thank the Makati Business Club for the invitation for me to participate in this event and share in the anti-red tape and anti-corruption efforts and public-private efforts under the Marcos administration. How I wish I would be able to join you in person. However, prior commitments have prevented me from appearing with you real time online. So apologies for this videotape message. Anyway, I really appreciate your invitation and being able to share with you the good news that the Anti-Red Tape Authority has been doing pursuant to its mandate under Republic Act 11032. We all know that of course, red tape and corruption go together, and this has been a long-standing issue in the country, dating back to the Spanish colonial period. So, especially in the midst of this pandemic, and as we look forward to the end of the pandemic and the economic recovery from the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is very important for us to be able to resolve this issue so that it does not further impede the country's growth and development. As students of public administration, we all know that the solution to reduce red tape and corruption is actually by using technology. But before we use technology in government processes, we have to streamline processes. So I'm happy to share with you the good news that the Anti-Red Tape Authority has been doing. Pursuant to the directive of our President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., where he strongly advocates for the reforms that, of course, involve streamlining and digitization of government processes, with the goal of reducing red tape and corruption and increasing or improving our services to the people for the public good. To him, these measures provide the foundation for a future-proof Philippines or a full digital Philippines. The Anti-Red Tape Authority is an agency under the Office of the President, established by Republic Act 11032 or the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018, which amended the Anti-Red Tape Act of 2007 or Republic Act 9485, which created the Anti-Red Tape Authority principally to implement the national policy on ease of doing business. ARTA is given the task of administering and enforcing the law, as well as, of course, monitoring and ensuring that covered agencies comply with the requirements of the provisions of the ease of doing business law. The mandate of ARTA is actually two-pronged: of the enabling and capacitating side, which is being handled directly by the operations group, which I used to supervise, and the enforcement or investigation side of ARTA, which means that in cases of violations of the law, our legal department would investigate, and after due investigation would recommend the filing of charges either with the Civil Service Commission or the Office of the Ombudsman. The Civil Service Commission, if the official or employee liable is a holder of a salary grade 26 and below, meaning non-presidential appointee, and the offense is strictly involving administrative matters. But if the official is a presidential appointee, meaning a holder of salary grade 27 and above, and the case involves both administrative and criminal, the case should be filed with the Office of the Ombudsman. While our work at the Anti-Red Tape Authority is not directly related to fighting corruption, because it should be with the Office of the Ombudsman, we believe that red tape and corruption go together. If there's red tape in the office, there must be corruption somewhere. So our mandate is often framed as such because of the way we advocate for the streamlining of government processes and to digitize, because our mantra in the Anti-Red Tape Authority, and as directed by no less than the President, is for government processes to be streamlined and then automated or using technology. It's easy to understand, realize that red tape eventually leads to corruption, because lengthy and confusing government services coupled with complicated, hard to understand overlapping regulations to make it difficult for citizens to avail of government services would have no motive at all, but of course to force the applicant or citizen involved to come across or using fixer, using padrino. Because if the law is to be implemented fully, there will be no more need for fixers. There will be no more need for a padrino. Because, as I will share with you, number one, which to me is the heart and soul of the law, is the requirement for all covered agencies. I mean, all national government agencies, local government units, government-owned or controlled corporations, state universities and colleges, local water districts, and the only exemptions are those constitutional bodies like the Commission on Audit, Commission on Election, Office of the Ombudsman, the Civil Service Commission. Of course, the judiciary and the legislature are not covered. So those covered agencies are required by law to have an updated citizens charter. The citizens charter is nothing but a document required of all covered agencies to publish on their website or to post in the most conspicuous place in their offices the services that they offer to the public, the requirements, the fees to be paid, the standard processing time of either 3, 7, 20 working days, and of course the procedure involved and the person responsible for that kind of service. It is so basic that if the kind of service that a particular agency renders is not indicated in the citizens charter, therefore it is as if they are requiring a document or fee that is not published in the citizens, which is actually prohibited. So basic is the requirement of the citizens charter that when the applicant has submitted all the requirements and the fees have been paid and there is due acceptance of the application as evidenced by a receipt or a receipt copy of the application, the period, the 3/7/20, will start to run, meaning that the agency has the period of either 3/7/20, depending on whether it's a simple, complex, or highly technical transaction. Simple, if it is ministerial on the part of the agency to act. Complex, it requires some discretion, 7 working days. And 20, highly technical, if it has relation to public health, safety, etc., or some study. Now, subject only to one extension, but it does not mean that the agency has to approve, because the law only provides for a period, either to approve or disapprove. If it disapproves, it only is required to state the reason for the disapproval, and also it is given a one-time extension of the 720, and also to notify the applicant of the need for the extension. So basic, these requirements that if this is complied with, the applicant does not need a fixer or a padrino, does not need to follow up, because the law specifically provides that that agency has that period to process it. Otherwise, it is already subject to automatic approval. What is the procedure for the automatic approval according to their implementing rules and regulations? The complainant still has to notify ARTA that his application has already been submitted, complete with all the requirements, and the fees have been paid, and that ARTA, either through its, the legal department, would conduct clarificatory hearing. And of course, due process requires that the agency should be given an opportunity to explain. So if that cannot be explained, like the agency failed to act on the application within the standard processing time, then the agency, the anti-retive authority, orders the agency concerned to automatically approve. So it is not the agency which issues the automatic approval order. It is only ordering the agency concerned to automatically approve the application for license or permit, after, of course, a certificate of completeness from the applicant that he has submitted all the requirements and that he's been paid. But sometimes agencies make use of not accepting the application because the period will start from the moment the application has been submitted, complete with all the requirements. But still, if that is being done by agency, it is still subject to violation of the standard processing time on failure to act on the application within either 3, 7, 20 working. So given this, this is aside from all the other initiatives, programs of the anti-retive authority, if this law is to be fully implemented, that I firmly believe that we will not only substantially reduce red tape and corruption, it will even eradicate red tape and corruption in the process. If all governments agencies are serious about implementing the law, and the public will cooperate, will complain to the anti-retive authority, because we don't have so much resources to know what's really happening on the ground nationwide. So we need people to complain to us and let us know. And I can assure you that your concern or your complaint will be acted upon. I mentioned about already the Citizens Charter. Corollary to the Citizens Charter requirement is the zero contact policy. Again, this firms up the drive against red tape and corruption, because it is prohibited for any government official or employee to have any physical contact at all with the applicant outside the office, except when the applicant submits his application, or there is a need to explain the certain provisions, and or when he pays the charge. But in view of our policy on streamlining and automation end-to-end, there's even the requirement of physically going to the office is even avoided, because we encourage filing, processing, and even payment online. So this will practically eliminate any applicant to personally go to the office concerned. And of course, I mentioned earlier the automatic approval provision, which will totally eradicate the need for fixers or padrino whenever one has to deal with the government agency. So, of course, I have to emphasize that I have to advise everyone that before you go to the agency regarding a particular service that the agency offers, all you have to do is look at their citizen charter, which should be published in their website or posted in the most conspicuous place of the government offices. So with that strict adherence by government agencies as to the requirement of citizen charter, the applicant will already know, be able to know the kind of services that the agency offers to the public, the processes involved. So the citizen charter works as a contract between the client, the people, and the government agency, and the people must be aware of this, especially you, the business sector. We're pleased to report that our compliance monitoring and evaluation office has reported that 91.62% of covered agencies have submitted their citizen charter. There is really a pressure for them to submit, because part of the requirement for agencies to be compliant, to be compliant with the performance-based bonus requirement, is that they should submit an updated citizen charter. Now, let me just go over what are the violations considered under Section 21 of the law. These are very specific, and no government official or employee will dare violate this law, because the defense is very limited. Like, for instance, Section 21 says that it is considered a violation of the law if the official refuses to accept the application with complete requirements without due cause, imposition of additional requirements other than those listed in the citizen charter, imposition of additional costs reflected in the citizen charter, failure to give a written notice on the disapproval of the application, of course, failure to render government service within the standard processing time of 3/7/20, failure to attend to the applicant prior to the end of the working hours, and of course during lunch break, failure or refusal to issue official receipts, and fixing and or collusion with the prohibition against fixing is such that for the first offense of the enumerations I mentioned earlier, the penalty already is 6 months suspension, and for the first offense. But if the offense involves a fixer, the penalty for the second offense will already apply, even if it is committed for the first time. So therefore, the penalty for the second offense is dismissal from service, forfeiture of retirement benefits, perpetual disqualification from service, fine of 500,000 to 2 million, and imprisonment of 1 to 5 years. Now, you tell me, do you know of any government official or employee who will dare violate this law? If you complain to ARTA and we find out that they violated the Section 21 of the law, conduct hearing, their defense is very limited, because I could not think of any good defense for an official or employee to say that he failed to act on the application within 3/7/20, when all he has to do is to act on the application within that standard process, or if he needs an extension, all he has to do is to notify, and he does not have to approve. If he disapproves the application, all he has to do is to notify the application the ground or the reason for the disapproval. Okay. So, as I mentioned earlier, the mandate of ARTA is to capacity enable agencies, and of course the other one is the enforcement or investigations. And we conduct entrapment operations, because we have people on the ground giving us tips about certain violations, and once we receive tips or complaint, we send out our investigators to conduct surveillance operation. And if it is tested positive, then we coordinate with our law enforcement agency, with our Philippine National Police, or even CIDG or the NBI, and we conduct entrapment operations. So far, we have conducted already 21 entrapment operations, and during these entrapment operations, 28 fixers were apprehended and 3 have already been convicted. Of course, ARTA is continuously working closely with agencies to implement the projects and activities to help address issues and red tape under a whole of government approach. As directed by the President, agencies must be interconnected, and ARTA has that mandate to call on agencies so that we can approach a particular issue or concern under a whole of government approach. So The EODB, the Ease of Doing Business Law, requires agencies to ensure that regulations are evidence-based and that proper consultations are made with the stakeholders. This is to make sure that the regulation is fit for purpose and does not create undue regulatory burden. As I have stated earlier, our role in government is to stimulate economic activity while also protecting society. ARTA has developed guidelines and circulars for government agencies to follow and refer to in the implementation of the National Regulatory Management System. So the NPRMS is the overarching policy that the Anti-Red Tape Authority has recently launched, precisely to not only to reduce red tape, but reduce corruption in the process. And we expect agencies to adopt technology in the implementation of their streamlined processes and services and adopt interconnectivity and interoperability. Examples of which, just examples of the many other programs and initiatives that we have already launched are the Philippine Business Hub, or formerly the Central Business Portal, which actually encourages the use of a unified application form when you register your corporation with the SEC, and it takes only maximum of 3 working days to get your certificate of registration. Together with that, in the unified process is that you, at the same time, register your business with the SSS, BIR, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. And then, of course, when you need a secondary license, eventually the Philippine business will connect to be able to get your secondary and even your business permit and licenses. And of course, we have done that already. We have issued a joint memorandum circular together with all the other agencies on the integrated business permit and licensing system, also on construction permit and licensing system, the electronic business one-stop shop for all LGs to mandatorily comply with, which is on the use of the electronic versions of licenses, clearance, permits, and certification and authorizations. Digitalization, as the president puts it, is the key to giving people high quality and efficiency. How I wish I would have more time to discuss with you the various programs and initiatives that I mentioned earlier. But these are really designed to comply with the directive of the president to streamline government process and the use of technology. And these are all laid down already, ready for full implementation. I forgot to mention the PBRIS, the Philippine Business Regulations Information System, which is a system that will allow citizens like you in business to have access to the regulations that agencies are implementing, and we're doing it fully. We will roll it out next year. The system will allow agencies to download the regulations that they're implementing, and citizens would have access to it. Now, as to the monitoring of the citizen charter compliance by agencies, we also have developed a system that we call the Anti-Red Tape Electronic Management Information System, where the citizen, the public, will even have also access to the citizen charter that the agencies are supposed to update and publish in their website. Okay, so all of these programs are really complementary. That once fully operational, will really put all government processes more streamlined, use of technology, automated, and the people will expect and much improved services once these are fully operational. And hopefully within the next 2 years we'll do it, because next year we will be rolling out all these programs, initiatives, capacitate agencies to comply with this. And we need really your support, businessmen. The president has also encouraged public-private partnership, because we need people to validate the reports being given by government. And you, people on the ground, the business people, are the most qualified to tell us whether the services that the agencies are publishing in this are really actually being complied with by these agencies. And before I end, of course, I'd like to share with you that we also launched the Report Card Survey 2.0, we hired a third-party provider where the report card service is the use of a unified survey. Parang if you, an applicant, after getting the service of the agency, you will have the opportunity to rate the kind of service that the agency has given to you. So we have done this. We have piloted this to 50 priority agencies, and we have already the results. And on December 19, we will award compliant agencies. The report card survey is a requirement by Section 20 of the law. It ensures that agencies complied with all the requirements of the ease of doing business, and at the same time, a way of rewarding government. So what we're doing at the Anti-Red Tape Authority is really comprehensive to address the issue of red tape. And we can only do this if we get your full support and cooperation. And let us know any experience at all with that agency that you're dealing with. And I can assure you that your concerns will be properly addressed. So let us all collaborate as we envision a Philippine government that is clean, just, highly efficient, technology-enabled, and people-centered, fostering a high-trust society with a globally competitive business and service environment. So thank you very much for this opportunity. How I wish I would have time to answer your questions if there's any need for clarification. So maraming salamat po and have a good day.
Thank you so much, Secretary Perez. Actually, we're glad that he was able to make time for us, a little bit of time, pop in the Zoom meeting while he's in Malacanang right now. May I invite Secretary Perez, if you're there, if you can just say a few words, say hello. Okay, maybe I think he can't speak right now. Okay, but actually we have questions already coming in, so I think it's best if we jump straight to the discussion. In any case, Secretary Perez will be listening in, and if he can jump in, he will, but he's represented actually right now by the OIC Chief for ARTA's Legal Division, Attorney Alma Martirez. Attorney Martirez will be joined, of course, again by Attorney Alex Cabrera. We heard from him a while ago, and our third panelist is Mr. Michael Raeuber, who's also the Vice Chair for the Integrity Initiative Board. And Michael is the chairman of the board and the group CEO of Royal Cargo. And he's been in the freight forwarding industry for over 45 years. And he's also founding member of the Bureau of Customs Multi-Sectoral Governance Council. Michael, good morning. Attorney Alex, Attorney Alma, good morning.
Sorry, I just came in. I could. This is the problem with using a cell phone in conducting a meeting. I'm actually on the way to a meeting in Malacanang, and just like to express my appreciation to the Makati Business Club for sharing with you the good news that the Anti-Retif Authority has been doing. And just like I mentioned earlier, I'd like to emphasize that these programs and initiatives are already operational, and we are going to fully operationalize them next year as we roll out these programs to all government agencies. And I really need the support and cooperation of the business sector to validate whatever services that government agencies are rendering. You, the people on the ground who are actually experiencing them, would be in a better position to tell us whether in fact that services as declared by government agencies are being done properly as declared in their respective citizen charters. So maraming salamat po. And I know Mr. Raeuber here, and we had that meetings, and I understand, I fully understand these problems before, and I hope that ARTA has been able to help. Our experience will show that even if you, for instance, you're encountering delay or red tape in the agency, just mention the name ARTA and tell them that you're going to report to ARTA. And most of these agencies, if not all, would immediately respond. Because if they will not respond, then ARTA will call them to a meeting. And once we call them to a meeting and they would have no reason or excuse, then we will file charges against them. That I can assure everyone here present.
Thank you, Secretary. Would you be able to take one question from Attorney Cabrera?
Yes, please, of course.
Attorney Alex, do you have a question for Secretary Perez while we have him here?
Yeah, Secretary Perez, good morning.
Morning.
What would you say would be your priority now, having taken over ARTA? From what you've seen from the problems in the past, what would be your priority?
Of course, the priority, these are all pursuant to the directive of the President to streamline government processes and automate. We are conducting business process mapping of selected government agencies. And by doing so, we would be able to find out what are the gaps. But, you know, we have already in place various circulars that we issued last year and up to this year. And one, I just want to cite an example. Operations manual on construction permitting and licensing system, as well as the joint memorandum circular on business permit and licensing system. the experience of Quezon City, Mandaue, and even Valenzuela would show that by simply implementing that circular, LGUs have experienced substantial increase in the number of business registrations, as well as increase in revenues. So what I'm saying, if people are assured that once they apply for a permit or license, and that they will not be given a hard time, then they would be encouraged to register, and this will benefit the LGU itself. So our directive to is to treat any applicant to the respective offices as partners, no, not as enemies, not as somebody who is requiring a favor from them, but actually it is our duty as public servants to serve. So we have laid out all of this joint memorandum circular, complete with all the template, and no LGU or government agency can say that it is not clear. It is very clear. We have provided them already the templates. And the people should know this. And there is a specific responsibilities by government agencies, including the standard processing time. No. So if they're in violation, just let us know. I will assure you that we will act on it immediately.
Thank you, Director General Perez. Just one last question. Does ARTA have the manpower, you think, to address to attend to all these complaints? Or
Yes, so far we're doing well. I'm not saying that we have a sufficient number of manpower nor the budget, but people are helping us. Like we have the support of the Philippine China PCCI, no, Philippine Chamber, and of course, if Makati Business Club could be one of our ARTA champions, we would certainly welcome them. We have people on the ground volunteering as ARTA champions. So with those people helping us, including development partners, including corporations like the Appointees Group, the Meralco, who have been offering support. So for us, manpower is no excuse. No, lack of manpower is no excuse, because we have the basic manpower requirements, and we have the people on the ground believing in us, trusting in us, and reporting to us their experiences. So it's not. I'm not going to make it an excuse at all. In fact, I'm saying that we are determined to fully implement the law. In fact, we will be rolling out all the programs and initiatives that we have started last year and up to this year.
Thank you, Director General.
Thank you for asking that question, Attorney Alex. I guess a related question, but first, can you take one more question? Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, please. There's one more because I am
Yes.
now about to enter the.
It's very related because we received two comments in the chat box. They're related about anonymized reports. If there's no retaliation for those filing the reports. And the question from Ms. Esther Esberto is, what are measures they can take to protect ARTA can protect the person who has filed a complaint against an agency.
That is the usual hesitation, but that hesitation is unfounded actually. First, of course, ARTA can investigate motu proprio on our own based on anonymous tips or anonymous complaints. But if people are bold enough to come out in the open, we can assure you that so far we have not had any report at all of government agent getting back at the complainant. Why? Because if they do that, first offense only for the first offense, for the first violation, the employee will be subjected to 6 months suspension. Now, if he does that by receiving for instance, a complaint has been lodged against that agency, and the employee concerned gets back at the complainant by making it more difficult for the employee, for the applicant to deal with this agency, that is already considered a second offense. And second offense means dismissal from service. And I don't think any sound-minded government official or employee will dare violate the law for the second time. So I assure our people, please don't hesitate to complain. ARTA will be assisting you all throughout, even during the filing of the case and even in the prosecution of the case. ARTA will be there ready to assist.
Thank you.
We can only do this, so we can be successful in what we're doing if the people will not be afraid to report, complain to us, and ARTA will assure you that your complaint, your concern will be acted upon.
Thank you so much, Secretary Perez, and thank you for your
Yeah.
time. Thank you for the speech, and
Thank you. Thank you for this. Really have to leave. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you
I
so
hope
much.
next time we had a longer time.
I know, yes, and face to
discuss.
face. Thank you.
Thank you.
But as mentioned earlier, representing ARTA in our Q&A, to continue on with our Q&As, Attorney Alex Martirez. Attorney Alex, how are you?
Yes, good morning, and thank you again, once again, for inviting Anti-Rent Authority to this forum, and of course, giving us this opportunity to explain to you and share with you the initiatives that ARTA has been doing in the past couple of years.
Thank you. I guess my first question would be to you, Attorney Martirez, because Secretary Perez mentioned a while ago, he really stressed on digitalization. Aside from efficiency, digitalization is really viewed as an anti-corruption measure as well. I would just like to ask, like, how is this moving forward in the agencies? How has this helped so far in addressing red tape, particularly in trickier agencies where cases or reported cases are high? Which services absolutely need to be digitized first, or agencies at this point?
Thank you for that question. Of course, the digitalization efforts of the Anti-Red Tape Authority is being done together with the Department of the Information and Communications Technology. So we always go hand in hand. Whenever we have streamlining, re-engineering initiatives of these processes of agencies, there's always that digitalization part. So as mentioned by our secretary, after agencies have streamlined their processes, they will enter now the digitalization part, which is of course being assisted by the DICT for the part of most agencies. Some agencies, they have their own initiatives in digitalizing or putting their processes online, and we also welcome that for the part. As of now, we have a lot of efforts, of course, with digitalization. We have the Central Business Portal, which is a one-stop shop for starting up a business. That was already launched, I think, last year or last year. Of course, the number one priority as well would be the establishment by local government units of electronic business one-stop shops for everyone. I'd like to let you know that RA 11032 mandates all local government units within 3 years from its implementation. So that was supposedly last year. They should have had already their electronic business one-stop shop. So it is an electronic business permitting and licensing system. So that is for all businesses who are starting their businesses, who are renewing their business permits or licenses. So LGU should have that electronic business permitting and licensing system, again, which is a one-stop shop. When I mean one-stop shop, an applicant or an application for renewal of a business permit would only need to submit a unified application form, and then that application form and supporting documents will then go around all the other offices or departments within the LGU that would need to issue a requirement as a certificate or issue, so that mayor's permit or mayor's or whatever business permit that they would need would only be could be issued to that applicant. So it now goes to the back end services of the LGU without the applicant having to physically go through all these different offices in the LGU. So that is what we are really pushing for and prioritize right now. So of course, there are different classes of municipalities, different budgets. There have been the big cities and municipalities in NCR. They have been of course, in the forefront of their establishment of the EBOS. However, of course, for the other municipalities and local government units, we're still having a hard time with their compliance because they raised to us that number one, they don't have the budget, the facility, number two, the facilities, and number three, internet connection or stable internet connection that would allow this system to be established. But here in ARTA, of course, as one of the push of our new secretary that we will be empowering these agencies or local government units with complying with ARTA. We have had a lot of initiatives, of course, in partnership with private sectors. We have Meralco, we just signed a memorandum of agreement. They agreed to donate computers to selected LGU beneficiaries. Of course, this will allow for those non-compliant LGUs to be able to comply with what is required under RA 11032. So,
Martirez, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have actually a perfect follow-up question to what you just mentioned, and I don't want to lose that focus about some difficulties of some municipalities because of budget, capabilities. Some of them have different, capabilities to deliver. So may I invite Ms. Esther Isberto to ask her most recent question regarding deadlines.
Okay. I have unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, Pa.
Yes, okay. I would like to know, when we say digitalization, are all government agencies covered by this? Are they given a deadline when they should finish their digitization process? Example, BIR, Customs Agency.
Yes, thank you for the question. With the pronouncement of the president, I think all government agencies are already required to digitalize their processes. But under RA 11032, for local government units or cities and municipalities, they're actually mandated to already have this electronic business one-stop shop within 3 years from the effectivity of RA 11032. So RA 11032 was made effective in 2018. So supposedly 18, 19, 20, 2021, they should have already this system, this electronic business permitting and licensing system. But as I mentioned earlier, there were still some problems being encountered, but we are trying to address that issue. The ICT is actually has a system already. So we are looking for,
ICT.
yes, we work closely with the ICT for all our digitalization initiatives. We are the streamlining arm, and then the ICT would be the digitalization arm of the government. So with that, we are hoping that we will be able to assist and help LGUs in complying with their digitalization needs.
Thank you.
Attorney Alex, you're talking about the LGUs. I'm talking about national agencies. So when is their deadline to
Under
finish
the
the digitalization processes?
under RA 11032, there is no specific deadline mandated for national government agencies to finish all their digitalization process.
Yeah, but that's a problem.
Yes.
There should be a deadline to them, or the next 6 years they'll not do anything about it.
Yes, but although there is no specific period provided under the law, ARTA is continuously monitoring this process of digitalization. Of course, for national government AG, some of it, so it's not very easy, especially that they have hundreds of services that they need to digitalize. And of course, there is that budget concern that they are raising to us. However, of course, here in ARTA, we are not stopping until they are have digitalized their processes. We are looking very closely into it, and of course, we will ensure that this will not take very long for these government agencies to digitalize their processes.
Actually, we have a couple more questions coming in for ARTA, but I'll just pause the question for ARTA at the moment, and I'll turn over to Michael because this is related. Michael, you have many years experience or also involvement as the Bureau of Customs Governance Committee. Let's talk about maybe your recent experience in terms of the modernization of customs. Would you say that this the progress in modernizing customs has helped reduce or address the reported cases of graft and corruption? If not, what is the significant gap that prevents us from getting there, and what needs to be done to finally kind of clean customs?
Well, first of all, before we can go into specific details, actually what is happening in the Bureau of Customs, I think we have to understand some principle and important issues with respect to anti-corruption and corruption. So if you give me just a few minutes to talk about anti-corruption and then corruption, and then maybe we can go into the specifics as far as the BIR is concerned, as far as the Bureau of Customs is concerned. It is all interconnected. So I think for the, for efficiency of time, give me the floor to make these statements. In my own opinion, we have 3 essential initiatives against corruption. And ARTA, Anti-Red Tape Authority, is one of the most important one. Of my own experience and the group of my group's experience with ARTA is excellent. I can tell you, and this is maybe a positive, positive news. Without the help of ARTA and the positive reaction of government entities following the initiative of ARTA, today we would not have a Philippine flag shipping line, and our vessel could not have during the pandemic helped out in delivering goods from the Philippines to Los Angeles. It would not have happened. And if ARTA would not be there and help us out in interacting with government entities, I can tell you that the future of Philippine flag shipping line would be dark, would not be possible because we would not be competitive. So with continued help of ARTA, I think we can do it. I think we can maintain an intra-Asia container line with Philippine flag. And that is also with the help, not only also, it is materially because of the help of ARTA. So the second one is MSGC, and there we are already to your question with respect to the Bureau of Customs. I consider the Multi-Sectoral Governance Council in the Bureau of Customs as an essential instrument for the public, actually, to have some control over what is happening in the Bureau of Customs. And I'm not mentioning that because I'm one of the governors. As a matter of fact, I mean, the present 12 members of governance are a bit floating right now. There was supposed to be a meeting in December, which was moved now to January. I don't know why. Maybe we should bring that to the attention of ARTA. So in reality, there should be a new set, or either a reconfirmation of the present set or a new set of governors in the multi-sectoral governance group of the Bureau of Customs. I think this is essential to have. And this is also an opportunity for the new government to put in people of integrity into this instrument to control. The third one, and of course we all know about it, is III, is Integrity Initiative, Inc. In itself, yes, we are focused on the private sector. We are not really necessarily focused on the government sector, but we have to control ourselves and we have to police ourselves. And Integrity Initiative, I think, is essential in that. But for all the ideas we have, right? Of course, we need the support of the public, but we also need the support of government. And I hope in future we will have continued support of the government. Now, coming from one side, it means anti-corruption. Let's have a few talks about corruption itself. And for me, the most troublesome and probably worthy local challenge as far as corruption, in my opinion, that's my opinion. There are others who have other opinions, but in my opinion, the Philippines adopted a version of financing election costs based on the American version, which the American version is by donation of lobby structure and wealthy individuals. The Philippines is doing the same, but with emphasis, unfortunately, of top-down initiated corruption in the revenue-generating institutions, such as the PwC and the BIR, even setting collection targets for RP and PR. So what is RP and PR? RP is Republic of the Philippines. That's money going to the government, and PR is public relation. And you know what I am talking about. Okay. Now, the European version by contract is by government-funded cost cover of election cost to parties based on previous election results. That means to say the more popular you were in the previous election, the more money you have to spend for your next election. Augmented by legal, supposedly that's a European version, augmented by legal, supposedly transparent and limited donations. I'm saying supposedly because no system in the world is perfect. Okay, and corruption we have all over the world. It's not just that we have a problem here in the Philippines. This problem is all over the world. No? But that's the European the European thing. And number two, I mean, what we are also doing, and Alex has mentioned already, business to business corruption should be criminalized. And yes, we have been working on a bill. The bill is hopefully pending soon. And that's it. Now, yes, I can tell you that during my time as MSGC, I could see a tremendous improvement in digitalization. It is there, but of course, it being there doesn't mean necessarily that it has that it is being used efficiently to prevent corruption. No? But it is there. And secondly, even the instrumentalization of Bureau of Customs has improved a lot. I mean, their offices are different, their computer systems are different, the instruments they have to control, even from the head office to the customs in different locations in the country, in the Visayas, in Mindanao, they can control that. They can do an X-ray from Manila in the port of Davao or General Santos. So they have been modernized and they have been to some degree digitalized. So that has happened. The systemic corruption, unfortunately, is still there. So that's my answer to your question.
Thank you, Michael. I picked up a lot of things, especially understanding sometimes, the foundation of how political parties or candidates are being supported when they run. I think that's a good point to make and to highlight. And because from there, really, that's where corruption just continues on, right? Like the connections between the funder and the political officials. So thanks for also sharing and introducing the anti-bribery in the private sector bill. This is a great bill, and we hope we can hear more about it from Alex.
Roxanne, sorry, I forgot one important sentence here to ARTA. ARTA strive to improve delivery of government service to the public by reducing red tape. Now, over 80%, in my opinion, again, of red tape are corruption enablers. And corruption is stealing from the poor. So just by ARTA reducing corruption, it will automatically reduce the red tape. It will automatically reduce corruption, because you have to make it difficult before you can make it easy for a bribe. And as you reduce red tape, you will reduce corruption.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael. Over to Attorney Alex. So over the years, you repeatedly have advocated for the anti-bribery in the private sector. So this is the business-to-business aspect. What steps can businesses take to align themselves with this proposed policies? Maybe can you share more about the details of this? What's contained in this bill?
Yeah, well, it's thank you, Roxanne. It's not yet a bill, but we passed it to our potential champions in Congress. It's actually about criminalizing bribery that goes on in the private sector. So this is about giving gift or promising favors to members of the private sector, so that they can win on a contract or win on a bid or any transaction that they will have an advantage over the other. So any business transaction which is not being done on the merits, and you're winning because of special favors or gifts, that goes into this anti-bribery in the private sector. I think what's quite important in this bill is it also enforces whistleblowing. In fact, if there's something that you're seeing and you're not doing anything about it, you can be subject to penalties under this bill. So normally what goes on in the private sector, fraud happens, they sweep it under the rug, the person is let go. And that emboldens probably the process, because the most that you will be punished of is that you will just be let go. But with this bill, I hope that with the criminal aspect hanging over the heads of people who will get involved, I hope that it will actually help the private sector and help economy as a whole.
Thanks, Attorney. And just following on your presentation earlier about the integrity casebook, how would this help corporations and MSMEs solve the problems in the private sector? Because we believe you presented real cases, and not just corporate, the realities faced in corporates, but also smaller enterprises. And I think this is what makes this publication unique. Maybe can you share more about it?
Yeah, so this is largely based on the experience of companies like PwC, Shell, Royal Cargo, members of the Integrity Initiative, largely based on their experiences on how they overcame ethical dilemmas without, putting in a bribe. We all often complain about corruption, but you're not really looking at the other end. There could be no corruption if no one pays, and the person that pays, the entity that pays, is the private sector. So this is actually actual cases and how the private sector concerned handled this case and resolved this case without putting in a bribe. Most of these cases can be resolved within the agency itself. Sometimes you have to go to ARTA. Sometimes you may even need to file a case. But no one said that, when you do these things, that it's all going to be easy, because the most important commonality in all these cases is that you have to put in the work ethic. It is impossible to solve anything without putting in the work ethic, because if a government employee says, it's going to be more difficult for you, we're going to open all your books, we're going to make all these examinations, and then you said, I don't want to open books, I don't want the examination, then that's done, because you're not willing to put in the work ethic. But if you're compliant, you know the laws, you know what documents need to be kept, then you have to show it, you have to explain it, etc. And that will be the pathway towards solving these cases. We made it into a case book to show it as actual examples, actual experiences, and to show them that it can be done. Because you will hear from almost everyone, you can't do it with this government, etc. Because that's not simply true. PwC has been existing for more than 100 years now. We just celebrated our 100th year of existence, this year. And I would like to tell you that we've never done it under the table. Everything is above board. And maybe I would be honest, maybe it's easier for a professional firm because only our fees are involved and we don't like, but for big companies, more is involved. So, a decision must be done at the corporate level on what you are prepared to do as a company and whether you're prepared to be part of the change that we're trying to see.
All right. Thank you, Attorney Alex. Wow, more questions coming in. But I wanted to check first with Ms. Marcia Miranda if she would like to ask a question herself. Are you there, Marcia?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Roxanne. I really wanted to understand who were the major players in the anti-corruption movement in the Philippines and how the Ombudsman, for example, and ARTA interface, complement and differ, and what are the other important agencies that need to be part of this core system that needs to be operative. Yeah.
Maybe we can ask Attorney Martirez if how do ARTA and Ombudsman differ, complement each other?
Yes, with ARTA, we have, I think, two main functions. So we have an empowerment function and we also have an enforcement function. So for our empowerment function, we focus primarily in streamlining and re-engineering the services of government agencies. So we also look into the regulations that they issue, making sure that it does not add undue regulatory burden and cost the public. We also conduct this empowerment trainings to ensure that government agencies and offices comply with what is required under RA 11032. As to our enforcement function, our main focus as opposed to the ombudsman would be the violations provided under our 11032. So as discussed by our secretary, we have certain violations like failure to render government services within the processing time, when government agencies impose additional documents, additional fees, and securing or permits or applications that are not in their citizens charter, when agencies do not attend to applicants within their office hours or within their what they call a lunch break, or they have a cut-off, failure to issue official receipt. So our investigative powers are quite limited as opposed to the ombudsman. They have a much wider scope of violations that they go through. But after our, of course, since ARTA is not does not have the same power as the ombudsman, so we still file cases with the ombudsman for violations of ARTA, of course, ombudsman or the Civil Service Commission. But we don't only file cases, but we also enable agencies to comply with what is required under the law, because of course when you merely file cases, that does not resolve what is systemic in the system. So in ARTA, our focus is actually also to try to address this problem that are what they call already systemic in the agencies, so that they will be able to provide better, more efficient services to the public. Because when we merely file cases, it just removes one other person from the system, but the system is not fixed. It's not efficient. So that is the goal and function of ARTA, to fix the system and of course try to address these problems, or even if the problem is the person, of course, to file cases against these persons. So
Thank
I think
you.
that would distinguish ARTA from
Thank you very much. I have a follow-up question while Attorney Alex is on the line. May I continue, please? Roxanne?
Yes, of course.
Oh, yeah, Attorney Alex, I mean, corruption is major. It's been ongoing for quite a while. But are there any major areas that you will be focusing on the next 6 years, so the public can see any palpable effects from the work that you're doing? Would it be in construction, for example, construction management, and at the high end? But at the low end, what are those areas where you want to see impact that will affect the lives of the rural poor, for example, or those that are, or the informal sector people? If you could comment on that, Attorney Alex, thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. So we, and ARTA, we actually have a program. We call it the National Effort on the Harmonization of Efficiency Measures of Interrelated Agencies. So it's kind of long. The shorter name would be a Nehemiah program. So it is a streamlining program for ARTA. We've identified certain sectors that were our main focus for the past 3 years. And I think we are still focusing on that areas as of now. So we have telecommunications sector. So that is one of the biggest sectors that we've been trying to help. We actually had the telco summit last Tuesday, wherein we discussed the initiatives that ARTA has been doing together with other agencies that are involved with this permitting process for the telecommunication sector, such as the SHU, the DICT, we have the CAAP, the DPWH, so and so. Other sectors of priority what is the food and pharma. We also have a logistics sector, and we also have an housing sector. I think that is what we will be focusing in the next couple of months. I think it focuses more on the socialized housing program. So that is also one of the priority sectors of ARTA as of date. Other than those sectors for NHMI program, we also look into the services of agencies that are what we call a most complained of with ARTA. So based on the complaints that we receive, we call on the agencies, especially if we received similar complaints stating specific or similar issues. So we call on these agencies and ask them about their process, what could we do to streamline it. If the complainant asks if it is there is a it's a burdensome requirement or fees, we ask the agencies about it. We capacitate them to undergo a regulatory impact assessment training. So that is a very technical training. It basically mandates or capacitates the agency that whenever they are implementing regulations, they should undergo or conduct regulatory impact assessment on that regulation before imposing it. So maybe just a brief summary of what that RIA would be. It basically looks into the regulations, ensure that it actually addresses the problem. It does not add undue regulatory burden or cost to the client. And of course, there is public consultation before they are actually implementing that regulation. So those are again initiatives and
Thank you very
focus
much,
areas.
Attorney Alex.
Thank you, Attorney
Thank you
Martirez.
very
Thank
much.
you for asking that question. Actually, I have I received an interesting question from Mr. J.M. Avila of Converge ICT, and this is again to ARTA. Are these initiatives, your drives, your intensity on advocacy on intensity against bribery and corruption echoed in the regional offices on regional areas, not just NCR? Because I guess maybe this comes from maybe also experiencing corruption and bribery in other areas.
Yes, actually, just to let you know, ARTA is still on its way to setting up its regional offices. So as of now, I think we have 1, 2, 3 working regional offices, and next year that would be our priority. However, despite the fact that we have not yet fully established all our regional and field offices, ARTA central office has been going through different regions, different municipalities, and launching and making known to not only to government agencies but to private entities in different local government units or different regions regarding our initiatives. And of course, we are doing this together with other government agencies such as the Department of the Interior and Local Government and the Civil Service Commission. So we ask for their help due to our limited manpower and of course resources. We ask for their help to disseminate this information, our programs, our initiatives, so that our people from other regions would also know about it, and they would be able to inform, also, especially for the public sector, inform the government agencies that this is what is provided under the law, this is what ARTA is saying that you should do. And of course, the agencies, for them to be informed that this is what they're supposed to be doing. I think you're muted, Roxanne.
Sorry, I actually noted that Ms. Esther Esperto a while ago has a second question left unanswered, and I'll save that for the last questions for all the panelists. I think her question is who should be still involved in this unified efforts to address and fight corruption. Who else should it be? Should be ombudsman, right? Private sector. Who should be involved? But before that, I'd like to ask, I think we're down to our last 2 questions, but may I invite the country manager for CIPE Philippines, Mr. Ryan Evangelista. I believe he has a question. He raised his hand a while ago. Ryan, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Roxanne, and a pleasant morning to all of you. This discussion has just been so interesting. I got enthusiastic because I have a personal experience recently on dealing with government agencies, and I like the fact that Attorney Alex cited the priority areas and housing. I catch their housing is one of the areas, but more broadly, property rights is a major issue and debacle for a lot of us in the country. I recently had a transaction, land transfer or title transfer. It's taking forever actually until finally the land title or the Register of Deeds finally got my application. But going through that process, and I think this is my suggestion for ARTA to look into basically how the different organizations or government organizations talk to each other. What dashboards are they looking at? because BAR does not see the payments that I've made for the taxes that were paid with the local government. And the BIR as well, and the Registry of Deeds need certification from LGUs that on a lot of certifications on payments and this and that. But I think this should be part of a common dashboard that all agencies are able to access and see through, so that we as applicants or clients don't need to go back and repeat the process all over again and fall in line all over again every time we transact with these agencies. Are there measures you're looking at? And I think this is very cognizant of what Ms. Esther Isberto is talking about digitalization, that when we digitalize, we ensure that the offices are not siloed according to specific or certain mandates that they carry, but the mandate that making this information available to all other agencies who are supposed to benefit from the information that are already part of their dashboard or their repository. Just wanted to get your insight on this, if there's any other work that is currently in the pipeline to ensure that the national government agencies and local government units are actually talking, because I think for areas where there's cross-cutting of services or cross linkage of services like property activities or titling, these are important mechanisms that needs to be installed or improved in the future.
Yes, so I go ahead and answer. Thank you so much, Sir Ryan, for that suggestion. No, I feel your pain in going through that service with the government agency. Just to inform you, what the Nehemiah program that I mentioned earlier, that is exactly what we are doing. We are bringing together all these concerned agencies and making them sit together and talk to each other, list down the requirements, list down the process, map out everything, what are required, what can be taken out. Of course, we are encouraging data sharing between agencies, but that has been so far proven to be quite tricky due to some data privacy concerns. But that is what we have been trying to do. Just to an example in our telecommunication sector, because there are a lot or different permits and licensing that you have to get from various agencies, and such agencies need to be consulted prior to the actual issuance or prior to the actual setting up of their infrastructure. So that is what ARTA did. We sat down the ICT, DPWH, DILG, DHSUD, the housing, because of course there are homeowners associations consent required. We also sat down with NTC. We sat them together, even representatives from building officials, engineers associations, BFP, Bureau of Fire Protection. We sat them all together, had several consultation meetings, mapped out this process, and then everyone talked. This requirement is not really required. Of course, we did that with consultation from the private sector, the telco companies, mobile network operators. We consulted them. What do you think are the requirements that are not really necessary or not applicable in setting up or putting up this infrastructure? So with that, with our initiative, we actually came up with a joint memorandum circular that enumerated or provided for a streamlined requirement for securing the permits and licenses in passive telecommunications tower infrastructure. So that is what we will be doing in the other sector, or what we have already done in the other sectors and in the housing sector, I think in the coming months or this year. So we hope that you will be able to also achieve what you have suggested that we should focus on, and to get these agencies to talk and have this one process or standardized process, data shared between them, so that it will be easier for people transacting with these government agencies.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan, for answering asking the question, and attorney. Okay, one of my last questions, and either Michael and Alex can answer this one. I'm going to touch the topic that's really making the news rounds recently. It's the Maharlika Sovereign Wealth or Fund. And it's now being made into a bill aimed to optimize the investment allocation of Land Bank, DBP, and BSP. They've recently taken away SSS and GSIS. But I'm not gonna we're not gonna talk about the economic sense of it. But really, there's a lot of pushbacks and criticisms coming from different sectors, and it seems very interesting that stems a little bit about trust and governance issues. May I get your thoughts about what are the governance risks that we're seeing or we might see in the establishment of these funds, and maybe some safeguard measures that can be put in place?
First of all, I mean, to have this kind of fund, which is huge, look at the experience of Malaysia, and you can see where the risks are. All right. And then furthermore, I mean, Alex is much more involved in reacting to this particular request of government to create this fund. So I will leave that up to him now. I fully support. We are not in favor of that. And I think Alex can explain better why we are not in favor. If you give me 2 minutes afterwards on 2 other points, it will not take me long, so I can focus on that one. Okay, Alex, please.
Yeah, well, some people in the private sector felt that this is already beaten to the pulp. And they did remove, and I hope it will remain, I did remove GSIS and SSS in the equation. And the reason for that, presumably, is that obviously it's not the government's money. The sovereign wealth fund is something belongs to the government. It can do what it wants with that excess funds. The GSIS and SSS, the level of custodian responsibility over these funds, you know, it's at the highest form. They retirement money of the people, and if you as an individual receive your retirement money, you're going to be quite careful with it. But you need to receive it first, and you know, government should not be playing with people's retirement money. But what can be said about GSIS and SSS, I believe, could also be said about funds coming from government banks. These are coming from depositors, and the relationship between the bank and the depositor, of course, is one of a loan. It also has a great fiduciary responsibility, and you will not place these funds at risk. They're guaranteed returns, and I think the problem really is that even the legislation itself, there's so much latitude given to the board of the Maharlika Wealth Fund. You know, they're given this appropriation and given general guidelines, but basically it's up to their discretion on how to use these funds. Too much latitude. I'm not going to go into what safeguards can be put in place. I think that the best safeguard really is to use our existing structure, our existing legislation to push for these government service needs. There's this PPP program where the private sector funds can really be harnessed. Private sector expertise can really be harnessed. So much governance around the PPP projects and how the private sector and government can work together. You know, use this first, you know, before going into this, you know, sovereign wealth funds that seem to gather everything and produce that economies of scale with very little accountability and too much discretion. I mean, that's just not going to play out well in this environment where we're still trying to build up, you know, transparency. That's why we're going to digitalization of these government agencies, but these are just not there. There cannot be any safeguard on that. I'm afraid coming from me, but you know, just don't do it and then rely on PPP, public-private partnership to go through to accomplish the projects that government wants.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Alex. Now to my points. The question was earlier, what other government entities or structures could enhance effectiveness of anti-corruption, right? What came to my mind is Philippine Competition Commission. Remember before under Secretary Balisacan, they were very helpful from the side to support anti-corruption issues. So I think that would be one government entity we probably could link up with. And then also, Secretary Balisacan is not anymore with Philippine Competition Commission. He's somewhere else. He's with NEDA. Now I'm saying, I'm taking the opportunity to say, I know that Secretary Balisacan is a man with integrity. So he has an important role in NEDA. Somehow, and I leave that up to you, maybe we should also connect to NEDA and see what we can do with them or together with them or help each other. So this was one point. The other point is to the female version of Attorney Alex to ARTA. And that is, yes, we have created about 7 improvement opportunities within the Bureau of Customs, of which only 6 were really attended to. No, if we say only 1 was attended to, the other 6 are pending. And I have no problem giving you a copy of these improvement opportunities. And also we are looking forward after the new MSGC was formed, to create new improvement opportunities. So you see, this is an instrument within a government organization, which is, well, not known, known is the wrong word, but which may have some issues on the corruption side. But you have an organization within the organization itself, and that can be effective, and to be happy with new people and old people to create new improvement opportunities within the Bureau of Customs against corruption.
Thank you, Michael. And maybe at the same question, very, very briefly, maybe just say who else should be involved. Maybe in ARTA, Attorney Martirez, maybe which sector or organization you feel that you should still involve some more? And the same question for Attorney Cabrera in this big fight, this Philippine fight against corruption.
Yes, I think, of course, the Civil Service Commission should also be involved in this initiative, because the Ombudsman does not cover all government employees and offices. Some of them are covered actually by the Civil Service Commission, and Civil Service Commission has a lot of offices or regional offices in the entire Philippines. So they would be able to focus more on the areas that we are not able to reach yet. And I think that was one agency that should be involved in this initiative.
Thank you, Attorney Martirez. Attorney Alex?
Yeah, in this ecosystem, there are 3 parties for me. It's the government, the private sector, and the public. The work of the private sector is pretty much cut out to do your business with integrity. And the role of government, tone and action from the top. If government is really in it, there are no obstacles. Not technology on digitalization, not money, political will. There's political will, then this can happen. And the public, the role of the public is to make your government accountable.
Thank you, Attorney. And thank you, Michael. Thank you, Attorney Martirez. I'm going to close this panel discussion by remembering the quote shared earlier by Attorney Cabrera: the right you don't fight for is downgraded to privilege. And that's a good thought and sharing. Thank you, Attorney Cabrera, also for sharing that this anti-corruption, Global Anti-Corruption Day, remembering each and everyone's responsibility, right? We all have a responsibility. And I apologize to everyone who submitted their questions or shared their questions. There's still a lot coming in, but please do, we will share these questions directly to our speakers and invite them to reach out to you. And thank you again to our very active panelists. But before we end this forum, we really want to hear from you and learn from this experience. So if you could please scan this QR code, give us feedback, how to improve on our events. We'd love to hear from you and maybe some suggestions as well. So, all right, thank you so much. For our closing remarks, may we call on our partner organization, the Country Director for CIPE, Ryan Evangelista. Ryan.
Thank you, Roxanne. And again, thank you to all of you for being part of this wonderful discussion. On behalf of CIPE, or the Center for International Private Enterprise, I would like to thank our esteemed panelists, Attorney Alex Cabrera, Mr. Michael Raeuber, and Secretary Ernesto Perez, and Attorney Alex Martinez of the Anti-Red Tape Authority. I'm grateful to MBC, especially Coco, Roxanne, Jesse, and Eunice, and the rest of the team for organizing this forum. And I also want to send our congratulations to the Integrity Initiative for the launch of the Integrity Casebook. We look forward to helping share the rich repository of information and best practices from this casebook to enable public's greater awareness and support on integrity measures that proactively promote ethical standards and transparency and accountability. We at CIPE believe that democracy is at strongest when the private sector is flourishing. This can only happen when core institutions of democracy are strong and transparent. Thus, we believe that effective, inclusive, and transparent governance is essential to provide equal access to opportunity. Strong strong democratic institutions and civil society actors can curb corruption by holding public officials, businesses, and individual citizens accountable. Democratic governance, anti-corruption, and business ethics form part of CIPE's DNA. In the Philippines, over the last 2 decades, we have worked with institutions like the Institute for Solidarity in Asia on the Performance Governance System, the Institute for Corporate Directors and ASEAN Corporate Governance Scorecard, and the AIM Corporate Governance Institute on SME capacity building against corruption and bribery. All these pioneering private sector and civil society-led initiatives uphold transparent and accountable governance and minimize effects of corruption to businesses, particularly the micro, small, and medium enterprises. In 2018, we launched the Anti-Corruption and Governance Center, ACGC, at CIPE. The ACGC consolidates 4 decades of CIPE's institutional knowledge and experience in anti-corruption efforts, working with businesses, civil society organizations, and governments around the world to provide thought leadership on anti-corruption programming and ethical standards for business. How does CIPE fight corruption? And there are 4 ways that we do it. One is through anti-corruption compliance, which targets the supply side of the corruption equation by reducing private sector misconduct. Second is integrated compliance, wherein we help companies manage their corruption, as well as environmental, labor, and other risks to comply with international standards. Third is anti-corruption rapid response, which enables swift response to cement anti-corruption gains during political windows of opportunity. And fourth is through private sector collective action, where we work on building coalitions of companies to fight corrosive and endemic corruption. With this in mind, we're very honored to work with MBC in helping position private sector's proactive role in ensuring transparent and accountable governance. Having worked with private sector and advocating business enabling environment initiatives and reforms for more than 2 decades, I know for a fact that private sector is key to unlocking effective anti-corruption efforts so we can rightfully improve the business environment for investments to flourish and help achieve inclusive economic development. According to the World Economic Forum, the annual cost of corruption is over $3.5 trillion. Capital that could have meant resources to support developing countries' COVID-19 recovery, or support infrastructure development amid climate change and resilience challenges we're facing nowadays, or even support education of millions of children who we should enable as well as nurture as a human capital and safeguard their future as our next generation's leaders. In fighting corruption, we need to support inclusive and collective action that enjoins multi-stakeholder participation. And I heard this a lot during the session, bringing in small, medium, and large companies from various industries to civil society players, to government institutions and leaders, and public in general. And by enjoining multi-stakeholder participation, we should use a positive approach by instilling the value and culture of integrity. And private sector leaders have a huge role to play, being that they are at the forefront as stewards of business integrity, especially in their respective organizations. As we look forward to the future, let's pursue a mindset that effective anti-corruption should be understood as a necessary foundation of a healthy and prosperous economy. Because to begin with, good governance is good economics. Thank you, and I wish everyone a blessed day as we commemorate the International Anti-Corruption Day.
Thank you, Ryan, and thank you again to all of our speakers. But please, before you go, may I invite everyone to please turn on their cameras just for a quick photo opportunity. All right, hold on. Maybe we can stop the share screen. Thank you. All right. We'll just wait for everyone. For those who want to open their cameras to please do so. Okay. We see some more opening. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. So I'll just count 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and my colleagues will be taking the photo very quickly. Okay, we see some more opening their cameras. Thank you so much. Okay, let's start. All right. For the first 1, 2, 3, smile. The second one, 1, 2, 3, smile. And the third one, 1, 2, 3. All right, thank you so much. So before we go, we'd like to invite you to the second session of the CIPE MBC ESG Forum series. So it will be happening on January 25th. You still have a lot of time to register and invite your colleagues and friends. We will be discussing the E part of ESG, right? So the environmental part. Very interesting global speakers that we will be having. So we're flashing right now the flyer. So please do make time, and we'll post some more on our social media. We'll be sending you emails as well. So thank you. So we hope this forum imparted with you lots of information, lots of takeaways in the spirit of the International Anti-Corruption Day today. We thank again our partner CIPE, all our speakers, and our panelists. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you to all our guests. And have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.